Muchísimas gracias. Es un privilegio poder estar
thank
aquí
you very much.
compartiendo
It's a privilege for me to be
experiencias, sobre
here
todo
sharing
pensamientos con vosotros, que me
experiences and
encantará
different
al
thoughts
final
with
de la
you.
charla poder tener
I
vuestras
would
preguntas o
love
opiniones
to
también.
hear your opinions and questions at the end of my
Bueno,
speech.
primero de todo,
Well, first of all,
como muchos de vosotros supongo,
as
tengo varias
you
vidas. La que
already
dedico más tiempo es trabajando
may
en
know,
el
I
BBVA,
have
en el equipo de neuros
several
digitales,
different lives. I
ayudando, como
work at
comentaba, en el
the
equipo de tecnología y en
BBVA
los últimos meses también de
at the bank,
investigación y
and I
desarrollo.
also
También
do
tengo el
research
privilegio de
and
participar en
development.
diferentes consejos. Uno es
I
Hyperledger.
also hold the privilege of
¿Alguien conoce
taking part in
Hyperledger?
different conferences.
Hyperledger es un proyecto de bajo el
Hyperledger
Linux
is a
Foundation que tiene
project
más de 200 miembros
that has more
internacionales que
than
intenta hacer los mejores
200
estándares
international
para redes
members
blockchain
and
para uso
a
empresarial.
really high
Y luego
standard for
también Alastria.
blockchain
¿Alguien conoce Alastria?
networks. And Austria, does
Pues Alastria es
anybody
una iniciativa
know
muy bonita
Austria?
que os recomiendo que
Austria
entréis.
is
Se
a very
intenta crear una red
beautiful
blockchain con identidad
initiative, which is a
española
project
que
of
también sirva
creating
para
a
otros
Spanish
países,
blockchain,
donde
which
la
is
gente
also
con una
useful
especie de
for
sistema operativo
other
donde
countries,
diferentes
and
empresas puedan
it's some kind of
ejecutar
operating system on
aplicaciones
which
por medio de
people can
smartphone.
execute different
Y también he
applications
participado en
through
algún libro y en
smartphone.
alguna startup.
I have also written some books and participated in some
digitales
startups.
bastante particular. Hace
So
4 años,
my working environment is quite different.
haber una disrupción en el sector financiero
So my
y que lo mejor
director
era intentar
decided
la disrupción
that
crear
we
las posibles
wanted to
empresas
create
que nos pudieran,
this project because we were
competir o
facing
canibalizar
banking on
diferentes modelos de
disruption.
negocio. Con lo cual lo que intentamos
Therefore,
es,
what
de
we
diferentes
try to do
maneras,
is
ya sea
to,
a través de
from
construcción
different
interna,
ways
que
of
sea
working,
superdivertido,
such as internal
o
building,
adquiriendo o invirtiendo o haciendo
or
partner,
acquiring,
crear un
or
portfolio de
investing,
nuevas
or
oportunidades.
partnering,
En el caso de construcción
generate a
interna,
portfolio
estamos
of
en
new
3 diferentes
opportunities.
países trabajando.
For example, we are
Casi todo el
present
equipo
in
está en
different
San Francisco y
countries.
Madrid.
Our team is in San Francisco and Madrid, and we generate different applications such as Google, which is a wonderful example of managing different kind of data in a safe way. When I was writing this presentation, I was thinking on telling some technical definition on how blockchain can help in several security issues nowadays. For example, how blockchain can improve DDoS attacks or differentiate the public key structures. But in the end, I don't work in transformation, and I always like to explain the difference between transforming, which is passionate, which I'm passionate about, but we always try to make our services more efficient and useful. But I work on disruption, and we understand disruption on as something new that happens and destroys what was in the market before. So right now I will comment on the new internet, on the new economy that blockchain and tokens are generating, in order for us to see or to have an opinion, our own opinion, on the security challenges and new opportunities that this new internet is generating. So after introducing myself, I would like to tell a small personal story. 4 or 5 years ago, I had heard speaking about Bitcoin. But 4 years ago, I found this article in a specialized publication, and it was commenting that after social networks, we had the trust web. And I was highly impacted because at that point, everyone was saying that 3.0 would be semantic network. And I think some people remember about this. So some people were thinking about new syntaxes, etc. And I started to think about what that did exactly trust web mean, and why our current web, the 2.0 web, didn't have that kind of confidence. Afterward, I found this article that also made me think. I think Tim Berners-Lee, how many of you know Tim Berners-Lee? Well, I think most of you will have heard about it. And Wired? Do you guys know Wired? Well, I was quite surprised by this Tim Berners-Lee article, which is more or less the father of the web as we know it. And he announced the internet is broken in this publication. So I started to think about the internet of confidence and why this guy was saying internet is broken. So I started to research, and there were things that seemed obvious for everyone, but in the end we need to reflect on which was the initial intention of those who created the internet systems. And of course this is a definition, I guess you will all have your own, and in the last line we see that users are around the world to share, transmit, and exchange information. So the important point here is information, and when we read about how they used to try to create these protocols that we know as the internet right now, they actually didn't tackle the problems that faced identity and value interchange that stand for internet payment. And what actually happened is that when we try to fit value interchange on this internet concept, the great majority of our problem as a digital society arised. And who knows Vincert? I really don't believe only one person knows about him. It's a Turing award, and he is one of the creators of the CCIP protocol. And when they were creating this protocol, they were not thinking about Facebook. So they were trying to get the packages from one computer to another. So as you see, for my personal trip from one world to another, I was actually trying to understand what the people in charge of blockchain were generating, and therefore to understand a little bit better the current situation. And one of the main points that the pioneers or first people that work on that, they were not in Finland or in Japan, for example. They were spread all around the world. So one of the main points was that we were facing the third internet wave. The first one was in the 90s or 2000 and something. Since you already know, it was we had millions of forums, millions of pages, and we had more freedom but less scale economy. And in 2002, the great digital giants that we know nowadays started, such as Facebook, such as Amazon, and they started to concentrate intermediation. If you remember, in 99 or 2000 something, when you downloaded information, it was difficult to find an application that didn't contain viruses or didn't lead you to problems. But right now we download application from Google Play. So this second internet wave made us face some data files, and when you speak to children or young people, for them it's very unusual that any kind of platform is not able to connect in a very simple way. Of course, we know platforms, but in the end, we are living with great platforms that go just with data threads, because this platform is generating value based on algorithms. As you already know, this is hugely complex. We have highly valuable data, but we cannot operate them. And this is the reality that we are living, a data wars. People are trying to provide free services that are very useful. And once more, I stress the adjective for free, because there are great initiatives like here in Europe, that they are trying to break this oligopoly. But in the end, we as users keep on giving away our data in exchange for services. So what people are trying to do is to create a new decentralized internet. And I would like to explain a little bit more on this, because this is a daily trip to knowledge. So the first important point is the meaning of Internet of Value. How many of you have heard of this concept? Any of you? So this is a sentence that is widely used, but for me it's quite useful when a person explained it to me and gave me the example that, for example, right now in a social network or in a messenger service or email service, I can pass on information. I can even make an agreement. I can tell a person that I want to buy something from them, but in the end I must go to my Internet of Value or network of value in order to pass on the value, maybe the web page of my bank. And these networks, the interchange networks and the agreement network will be together in one single unit. So what does this Internet of Value mean? So, in the end, I'm an engineer, so apart from business strategy, I love engineering. And what we are creating is a new world computer. I know that we have personal computers right now, we have the cloud, etc. But the promise is to generate a world computer on which we can apply applications in a secure way, and also data. I didn't want to show a technical diagram here, but as you can see, you might ask yourselves, where's blockchain? Well, blockchain can be present in every single layer. As you can see, maybe, the lower layer might be Bitcoin or networks implemented with blockchain technology, on which this value interchange can be registered. And we go to the next layer. This might be a global computer, and the next one, as you can see, is the data layer. What does it mean to have a data layer just on top of a processing layer? Well, we can allow that third companies sell us data or are provided data from us. But this is one of the points that makes us most curious about the changes in business models. And we are studying right now that there are some paradigm changes in general security. Well, about smart contracts, does any of you have programmed a smart contract? I don't believe it. Is it the first time you hear this concept, smart contract? Well, one of the problems is that they are not contract and they are not smart. In the end, a smart contract is just about the code. The difference is that this is a code that is executed in a distributed and decentralized system on which it is signed in a bilateral manner by different parts. And in the end, the agreements that have been reached are executed automatically. Some interesting cases of smart contract might be an agreement of using my house with an electronic key, and I can make a smart contract defining variables such as the date and the hour, and at that exact date and hour, one person can unlock my key. And also, for example, supply chains. Very big companies are are dedicating so much time deciding how they can they can turn supply chains into a more effective items. And for example, if you are going to buy something from a person that is currently in India and you don't know them, you want to generate confidence. And how does smart contracts work here? Well, they define several conditions, and for example, we could unblock a container when they reach our ports. And if several conditions are not fulfilled, we may have a punishing clause. And it is not necessary for third parts to be facilitating and seeing the conditions. And in the other part, we can see a very romantic vision of the libertarians. They are not liberals, but libertarians. They are trying to perform DOS, which is to say, to try to found a company without a directing board, and only to have only stakeholders that understand the code of this contract. Well, there's my geek part see this as an operating global system, a global data layer, which is distributed in order to program the world. We can program agreements and every kind of thing that couldn't be done until right now. Well, for me, it's also very important not only to see blockchain technology in an isolated way. For me, it's important to see its combination with another technologies. And one of the most interesting part of my job is to try to see their impact in 5 years. And it's also to try to see them in an analytical way. For example, in this case, this is a graph from Singularity University that tries to explain that usually men try to think in a linear manner, but technology is making this kind of thoughts in an exponential manner. And a good way to understand the difference between this way of thinking, I think if I take 30 linear steps, I can reach the back of this audience, but if I do it in an exponential way, I could go much further. And during the last 70 or 65 years, this is being produced by one of the Intel creators called Moore law, and this is to increase every month the processing capacity.
But it's also interesting to learn about other exponential growth, such as the growth of the Internet of Things. I'm sure you've heard of this. 10 years ago, it was said that our fridge were going to do the shopping for us. But it's true that we are having more and more sensors. Sensors are cheaper and cheaper, and they consume less and less energy, so they are being implemented in households, in cars, etc. What do I think it's important to compare this with blockchain technology? Well, first of all, because this creates a huge amount of data. We are living in societies based on the amount of data we have. This is a chart that I really like. It shows the Cambrian explosion of data. I always like to give the same example. In 2009, the iPhone was launched, and the reality is that the increase of data we've had in society is real. And some people like to say that data is the new oil, is the new value that needs to be exploited. And it's true, we are living in societies based on data. Have you heard about the pyramid called from data to wisdom? Well, the thing is that you cannot use raw data. You have to process them so that they can be used. The first layer of processing is information. With information, I can get to know what's happening. The next layer is knowledge. because from this data, I can try to foresee what's going to happen. And then we have the next layer, which is wisdom, which involves knowing how to act, taking into account the information that I've received, the data that I have processed. Also, I like to see the evolution regarding the deep learning. And the reality is that if we join data with deep learning algorithms or machine learning algorithms, we can also see an exponential growth of the impact of technology. If you like this, I would recommend you the blog called While But Why, that explains the artificial intelligence status right now, challenge and future. And maybe you are wondering, and what does this have to do with blockchain? Well, I will explain it later. Maybe you are also familiar with this chart. This is the growth of the Bitcoin blockchain transactions. As you can see, and I don't want to talk about the value of cryptocurrencies, etc. But as you can see, the use of this type of cryptocurrencies is still growing. So every transaction in this type of Bitcoin networks can exchange value in a very easy way with no intermediaries. Also, something impressive here too is the amount of data that are being created in these networks. And all this data can be, of course, processed and used. And it's not many people are paying attention to this data. These are a couple more examples of exponential growth. Who of you know Ethereum? This is the number of accounts of Ethereum. As you can see, there is also an exponential growth. It's been very well accepted, even though it has some governance problems, such as other blockchain networks. For me, one thing that is also really important here is the huge amount of data that are being created. One thing that I find really interesting regarding the difference between the Internet 2.0 and 3.0 is the D apps, which are the decentralized applications. This is just an example. We have decentralized applications for almost anything you can imagine. Some examples that I always find interesting and ambitious are the ones you can see here. IPFS. This project is trying to create a distributed storage system. Same thing, we have a file system in our computers or on the cloud. This is a file distributed system that can be implemented in a personal computer or in a company. We can also talk about STEMIT, which is a network that is a mix of Facebook, Medium, Twitter, and this network tries to reward with tokens to people that create content, and this allows for people to do also some crowdsourcing. It's almost impossible now to pay someone for creating content from the personal point of view. Now there are about 100 or 1,000 applications that are trying to compete with all applications that you can imagine, and they are making this through very different and limited concepts. All these applications are being built on the same data layer. So we are just being witness of how the current data environments are being broken. Also, some big companies such as IBM, BBVA, and P. Morgan are also experimenting regarding blockchain. Walmart, for example, supermarket chain has forced all their providers to use the blockchain they've created to have a real trackability from the point of origin to the point of sale of a product. Also, more examples that I'm passionate about and that are going to have a huge social impact is how blockchain can help us reclaim control of our personal data. We've heard about security problems related to data being stolen, identities being stolen. So one of the commitments blockchain has is that once data have been distributed, we could, for example, avoid the fact of updating softwares. And the fact of having decentralized networks makes very difficult to attack this type of systems. Blockchain hasn't been hacked yet since the creation of the company, of the system. And this new operating method has allowed companies to choose who they are going to share their data with. Another important thing here is sharing economy. It's not the same on-demand economy with sharing economy. Uber is not the same as the beginnings of Airbnb. So now companies are selling data, and even though this is not sharing economy, it's on-demand economy, Uber and Cabify, I'm sure you've used this, had to face several problems. If I'm a driver in Uber or Cabify and I've done a lot of services and I want to move to a different company, my reputation is owned by the platform that I've been working on. So if I move to a different platform, I'm going to lose all the reputation that I had built in the previous platform I was working before. And this is happening in all economy platforms of the internet. So this is why one of the main interesting points is the rise of decentralized marketplaces. So for them, intermediaries that do not add value are going to be decentralized. It's interesting to see also the different companies that are working with this perspective. Also, it's very important for me to talk about tokenized ecosystems. I'm sure you all have heard that there are digital native companies and companies that are doing a digitalization journey. These companies represent value through tokens. This means that we can also change the interactions between platform agents. This has already happened in public networks, and regarding private networks, they are trying to see now how they can tokenize any type of assets, such as houses, vehicles, etc. The concept of property means something different now. Have you heard about tokenomics? This is also quite interesting for me. Now, startups or new products can define how value is represented through a token, and I can start launching tokens, and I can do several things with these tokens. I can sell them to investors or to early users. Let's imagine a platform such as Medium. When they started, in order to get early users, they were giving tokens to the first user that were creating contents. Second thing you can decide is the way to distribute tokens. You can give away tokens so that people started using the applications. For example, you can give tokens to drivers in Uber so that there are more cars in the streets. And also, an important aspect is the way you can govern your tokens. Something very interesting too is that people are inventing thousands of ways of representing value through tokens. We have work tokens, interaction tokens, tokens that represent investment rights. We have 15 examples here, but I think there are 30 types of tokens that are being created, taking standards into account. And what I find important about tokens is that they are aligning the interests of actors in a platform. Before, we used to have investors are companies wanted investors to start a company, and then they wanted users, and the relationship between users and companies was captured by platforms. Tokens can do something different because we don't need an intermediary body. This whole process can flow thanks to tokens. On the right, you can see the example of Spotify, but you can also talk about different platforms such as Netflix. We have this type of examples here. If you have more users, you have more data, you have better algorithms, better recommendations, less barriers. And once you have all this data and you can distribute this data in the different actors of the platform, we've broken the traditional internet models. And I'm really passionate about this, especially. And the last things I have to say is that this is a comparison between the traditional network effect and the token network effect. Nowadays, companies or people can have return on the investments for their time and not just for the capital investments. For example, before, someone that was working on a open code, a project, they could receive some kudos or stars, but now this person can earn tokens, and if this project has some critical mass, they can even win some money. Identity and blockchain is something that can improve security, so this can avoid identity thefts, for example, and also from an environment you can check the origin of data and have some tracking of the activities of the data in order to make sure where is the origin of the data and the use of the data. And going back to what I've said before and the relation between blockchain and the artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, this is the way humans think. Sometimes people can think that what I'm saying is something that is going to happen in the faraway future, but in reality, things happen earlier than we think. One of the limitations of the Internet of Things is the segmentations of protocols, etc. Now we want to have a backbone in which everything that is connected, taking into account security and identity, can connect and transmit value and be improved. Something else I'm passionate about is artificial intelligence. Those of you who know about artificial intelligence know that this can imply some risks, such as losing the control of the artificial intelligence. And other risk is not having clear what an assistant is doing for us. So now we are working on the fact that artificial intelligence system can leave some track, and therefore we can limit the general use of an intelligent system. And as I was saying before, I think it's really important for me not to consider blockchain as something which is isolated. We must understand that the blockchain data are feeding artificial intelligence systems that are connected with blockchain systems, and all these things can be integrated using this blockchain. At the same time, they are creating more data to be used by the artificial intelligence. And whenever we start working on a project, it's very important for us to not to lose the focus and not to stop thinking about ethics, because exponential technologies needs exponential ethics. And now I would like to give you the floor in case you have any question you want to ask. Don't you have questions? Well, thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.